Welcome, and thank you for joining us for today's presentation reviewing why class operations management is becoming obsolete. Our objective is to provide a clear understanding of operations management is evolving to accommodate today's market. My name is Eric Sharp, and I will be the moderator for today's call. Just a few items I'd like to cover before we review today's agenda. Please note on the right-hand side of your screen, there is a dashboard that allows you to submit questions during the presentation. We will attempt to keep track of those questions and answer some during the presentation, but the majority will be addressed once the presentation is complete. With that, let's review today's agenda. In a moment, I'll be introducing today's guest speakers. Then we'll walk you through the story of classic operations management and also review TD Bank's experience when they switched from a classic operations model to an active operations approach. Then we'll learn what's behind the active operations method. And finally, we'll answer questions. During the course of this presentation, we'll be joined by Michelle Van Twistern, Vice President and Deposit Operations Group Manager at TD Bank. Good afternoon, Michelle. How are you today?
Good. Good afternoon, Eric and everyone.
We'll also be joined by Terry Woods, the CEO of Active Operations Management. Good afternoon, Terry.
Good afternoon, Eric and everyone.
So let's get underway. I'm sure any of you joining us today understand what we mean when we say the struggle that classic operations managers experience today. If you're unfamiliar, let's review some of the frustrations that you might experience. Simplistically and at a high level, classic operations management unfolds with the business using their best efforts to estimate a forecast and departments applying their staffing models to determine their corresponding costs. The business typically challenges the departments to reduce costs, and departments respond, in part by challenging the accuracy of forecasts. A budget is eventually agreed upon, and to improve this process, the business looks for better forecasting tools and techniques, and departments look for more data and tools to support their staffing models. Team leaders are left to achieve quality and service levels within prescribed costs for actual incoming workloads while trying to accommodate forecasting and resource variances. This approach is classic, top-down, data-driven, command and control, if you will. It becomes more pronounced as cost reduction pressures build and centralized workforce management groups are established to collect more data and apply more rigid controls. So, what is an alternative to the classic model? In the early 1990s, active operations management was developed by the founders of AOM International, Neil Bentley and Richard Jeffrey, who saw a compelling need for operational managers to have better methods, principles, and practices. While working for the Organization Consultancy Partnership based in London in the UK, they took Toyota's manufacturing practices and adapted them to service operations management for labor-intensive processing centers and incoming contact centers. In particular, they took just-in-time delivery practices and modified them for just-in-time resourcing in processing centers. As a result, active operations management enables teams, units, and collectively organizations to very effectively match resources to incoming workload. And what's most impressive is that this more up-to-date methodology is agnostic to the type of work being done. So it's the same management framework, process, and method, independent of the type of work being done. So at this point, let me pull in Terry Woods of Active Operations Management. So Terry, based on what I've just covered, can you contrast the classic operations model with active operations management?
Absolutely, Eric. As you mentioned, classic operations management is a top-down, data-driven management structure. Teams on the front line doing the best they can with what unfolds on the day within their resource and organizational constraints. Achieving quality and service levels at the optimum cost is the ideal. However, forecast uncertainty, unexpected events, organizational barriers, and timely information availability often defeat the optimum outcome. Active operations management is a service operations management method learned and applied by frontline managers and supervisors. It provides them with the control levers to achieve quality and service at the optimum cost in their dynamic environments. In contrast to the classic approach, AOM provides a common measure of work, independent of work type, along with a balance sheet that enables managers to collaborate in their weekly planning and provides collective opportunities for responding to unexpected events. It transforms the command and control approach to a coach-coordinate culture. It enables full control front. This increased engagement at the front line is a transformation for most organizations. And we define engagement as the application of discretionary effort. It is a powerful force in an AOM-enabled environment. The resultant realignment of accountability and control is outlined in this diagram. Enabled by the AOM method, a weekly management cycle is applied directly by the frontline managers and supervisors. The method results in forecast accuracies of plus or minus 2.5% and provides control levers that enables productivity improvements of over 30%. It also produces a much more calm, stable, and controlled work environment for staff.
Great. Thank you, Terry, for giving us that contrasting view. We've reviewed what differences between operations and active operations are. I'd like to reintroduce Michelle Van Twistern of TD Bank, who has experienced firsthand moving from the classic operations model over to the active operations model. Michelle is currently over a year into her transformation within deposit operations, where she's the group manager. Michelle, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eric. The implementation of AOM has been a cultural shift for deposit operations at TD Bank. We were very much managing by the classic operations approach, more command and control, if you will. Now the employees down to the associate level are more engaged on a daily basis. Buzz meetings are held each morning with every team getting together to review the results from the day before and to discuss the plan for the day. This inclusive approach has led to an increased employee understanding and involvement in the overall department operations. If an unexpected event during the day, the employees are aware of the situation and are better prepared to adjust to any impacts on their individual work. Recently, the adjustments department had to handle adjustments relating to the presentation of 2,000 duplicate checks by another bank. The work was moved around and resources were borrowed to cover the influx of cases, all in a very controlled manner. Another shift in attitude has been the re-evaluation of the standard staffing model. In areas where certain days or time frames have higher volume, historically, we have needed to staff for the peak. For example, in the exceptions department, Tuesdays are the heaviest volume day, and most of the work occurs in the morning. Recently, when a couple of associates posted out to move to other departments, those full-time positions were staffed with part-timers, covering only the morning hours. In another department, when an associate had left the bank, I questioned the supervisor what her thoughts were on the open position, and her response without prompting was to hold the position open, leveraging borrowed resources from other areas for at least a month to ensure that it was absolutely necessary to fill the position. AOM has also introduced new skills and given new opportunity for leadership growth. Department team leaders, supervisors, and managers are actively involved in forecasting and planning on a weekly basis. Most of these these folks were not engaged in any formal forecasting prior to the implementation of AOM. The process of looking at historical trends and the ability to predict volumes has led to a greater understanding of their workflow and offered an opportunity to take a more proactive approach to management. As we move to the next slide, I'll share some measurable successes we have seen at TD Bank. As volume has increased over the year, we have had little to no adds to staff. Since the implementation of the program, we have seen 15 to 20% productivity growth from the existing staff. In the accounting and adjustments department, start of the implementation, we had 8 full-time temporary employees that were released as we moved forward with the AOM, leveraging the lending and borrowing of resources across department lines. Through the lending of resources, staff has the opportunity to learn new skills, adding to their value to the bank as well as their own self-worth. As an example, we had an associate who had worked in the exceptions department for over 9 years and was hesitant to move anywhere else. Through AOM, she became fully trained in another department, and when an opportunity arose, she successfully posted to a new area, still within bank operations, but at a higher grade level. We are able to develop and retain our associates. Even within departments, the focus on cross-training is increased. The better understanding of how their work impacts areas. We have a more engaged and involved workforce. The leadership team has increased accountability and visibility with the AOM program. Through the reporting and weekly and monthly review meetings, managers and supervisors are asked to be accountable and explain why or how things went the week or month before. If they anticipated a volume level that didn't occur, the supervisors and managers are responsible to stay in control and still achieve the productivity that has been targeted. Through ensuring the resources are utilized appropriately and actively managing the team, productivity is maintained. AOM has also brought accountability to the amount of coaching each employee receives. Reporting will show how much coaching has occurred in each team. Part of the AOM culture is to target an hour of coaching per employee per. This enables the ongoing communication to the employee about cross-training as well as development opportunities or individual productivity. Training is also reportable. Training is included in the weekly plan, and the leaders are held accountable to it. Employees feel valued as they learn new things and see how their jobs fit into the overall bank operations.
Great overview, Michelle. Just kind of curious about a couple of things, though. Are there other business units within TD that are using the AOM approach, and what results are you aware of with them?
AOM has been rolled out to over 600 employees across bank operations, including areas of deposit operations and loan operations. Loan operations has experienced success similar to that of deposit operations.
Also curious whether or not you believe this methodology fits anywhere. I mean, you're in the financial industry. Do you believe that this can work in other types of service operations businesses?
This methodology has the ability to work with any service model as it is based on the building of core tasks and standard times for those tasks.
And what about technology? Typically, companies put a lot of money toward technology to show improvement in the way work is done. How does this relate, and is it differentiated in any way from what AOM does?
Most innovations for process improvement have a technology component. With AOM, the productivity improvement comes from better utilization of resources, investment in personnel, and leadership training, creating more proactive managers.
Also, one other thing I wanted to bring up, I heard you mention earlier the term buzz meeting. Can you explain exactly what that is?
A buzz meeting is a daily 15-minute touch point with the team. The group reviews the previous day's numbers, including volumes received, items worked, and productivity. There is also the opportunity to talk about current activities and the plan for the day.
Great. Thank you, Michelle, for your insight on the personal experience that you have transformed your business. I'm sure we'll have some questions for you as we move through today's presentation. Now, let me provide some further background on AOM. AOM is a global company with its primary headquarters in Reading in the UK. Over 40,000 currently use the AOM method, and it's climbing quite rapidly. Early success in the financial services, insurance, and business process outsourcer sectors took the AOM method global, and today they have operations in the US, Canada, the UK, Australia, and South Africa. Since 2005, AOM has been deployed across 5 continents in over 35 countries in the financial services, insurance, business process outsourcer, and government sectors. These are some of the organizations that have implemented active operations management. Barclays, for example, have deployed AOM globally across their global payments group and are now deploying across their Barclays operation. National Australia were an early success with AOM. On the benefits they were achieving, Westpac and ANZ were quick to follow. A similar local dynamic is happening in North America. Harris Bank was first to try AOM. Based on their results, Montreal, or BMO as many refer to them, decided to deploy AOM across all of their processing operations. BMO hosted TD for a visit in 2009, and now TD has AOM deployed across all of its Canadian processing operations. And as we just discussed with Michelle, AOM is now deploying across their U.S. sites.
Eric, if I might review some other significant points about AOM.
Go right ahead, Terry.
Okay. The AOM method has also achieved third-party recognition as a service operations management best practice.
What does that really mean, Terry?
Well, the organization, the Operations Council of the Board Executive Board, performed a case study in 2005 of National Australia Bank implementation and identified AOM as a best practice. Again, in their December 2009 newsletter, they reiterated AOM as a best practice. They have also assisted their member banks in deciding to implement AOM. Also, the Institute of Leadership Management in the UK has recognized AOM as a course credit towards a management diploma. South Africa has adopted a similar approach. The Warwick Business School has included AOM in their graduate program for service operations management. And it's making its way into the U.S., with the University of San Diego being the first to partner with the Warwick Business School to provide a similar offering. One distinction I'd like to make is that AOM is an operations management layer. It sits on top of work processes. We don't get involved in the process, so the benefits achieved with active operations management are in addition to any process engineering activities that you may have in play, and is completely compatible with them. Lean Six Sigma initiatives really came from the same origins, the Toyota manufacturing best practices, as AOM does. But we are the layer that sits on top of that. It's the equivalent of just-in-time delivery. When people think of improving productivity by 10% to 40%, they immediately go to, how are we going to make people work faster, work harder? How are we going to change the process, take out activities, and so on to realize that gain? The gain that AOM provides is in addition to any of that. It's completely realized from accessing the latent capacity that exists the resource to incoming workload matching of the challenge. This is often tricky for people to grasp. In fact, we look for people to work at a steady pace that's about the 85th percentile of their pre-existing pace of work. So people are not actually working as hard as they have done on their busiest days. So it's a steady and consistent pace of work, not a faster pace of work.
This is great information, Terry, but I'm kind of curious, Michelle, if Six Sigma is used within TD, and if so, what was the compatibility like?
AOM is completely compatible and aligned with TD's Lean Six Sigma initiatives. AOM instills the same continuous improvement culture and releases capacity that is often applied to TD's continuous improvement approach.
Got it. Thank you, Michelle. Now, I'm going to take a second and show everyone what AOM looks like graphically. Within the AOM method, frontline managers and supervisors take responsibility for quality and service levels at the optimal cost. This picture just pulls together the service operations management challenge of balancing quality and service at the optimum cost, which is at the center of the active operations management approach. Around that goes the AOM process skills, the behavior, and a small support tool. And then there are concepts around that, which really reflect the spirit of AOM, and it's pursuing those objectives that helps drive the continuous improvement. These uniform and consistent sets of concepts are brought together within the AOM method that engage and support these managers, supervisors, and collectively the organization. So, Terry, part of the AOM methodology is following a weekly control cycle. Can you expand on what this cycle entails?
Yes, certainly, Eric. The AOM method is facilitated by a weekly process of forecasting, planning, control, and review. This weekly control cycle becomes the heartbeat of the organization. It brings together all of the concepts, including the common currency for measuring work, the balance sheet for work and resources, plus the various collaboration and control levers. This is applied by the frontline managers and team leaders. This cycle is found in all organizations at the annual level, sometimes at the quarterly level, but seldom with such rigor at the weekly level. For forecasting, we find forecasting is a mental obstacle within organizations. So when we start this, the position is often, oh, I can't really forecast very accurately. Our position is a forecast is either lucky or it's wrong. But that shouldn't stop people from taking their best guess. Once people start guessing at the incoming work just for the next week, after about 5 or 6 weeks, you realize they guessed. In fact, they take what was previously a plus or minus 20% uncertainty on the forecast from an annual or quarterly plan and bring that down to about a plus or minus 2.5% accuracy at the weekly level. This is a real driver in improving performance. For planning, your existing managers and supervisors currently have an expectation in their head of what their team will be doing next week. And they feel reasonably confident that they'll be able to put out any fires that erupt. They seldom have rigorous documented plans that they develop with their teams and collaborate with their peers to optimize. They often don't have a common lexicon, process, or tools to facilitate such collaboration, especially across different work types. With AOM, team leaders draft the plan. They usually produce an unbalanced plan where they'll have several hours of excess on Monday, maybe a shortfall of a few hours on Tuesday, and so on throughout the week. From there, they will get together at a weekly load balancing meeting on Thursday generally chaired by the department manager, where they discuss around the table the difference in hours of shortages and surpluses in each day and how they can collaborate to balance them off. For example, if I have too many resources available for the work I have on Tuesday, my productivity is going to suffer. So I am as motivated to lend resources as I am to borrow them. And this is a new dynamic in many organizations we go into. Many times we see that if it's a very busy day and everyone is running around with their hair on fire, someone will lend them a resource. But in the AOM environment, people are fully motivated to and borrow, even for small variations. The next ingredient in AOM's secret sauce is to respond in relation to the plan instead of reacting to the day's events. So on Wednesday, you draft the plan for the week. Thursday, you have the load balancing meeting for the plan. Then once you get into the week you plan for, you have a series of morning buzz meetings around visual boards in each team area where the team leader and team members do a sanity check on what is planned for today and review how yesterday went. This is used for the daily and weekly control. This control is managed by adjusting the various levers like loaning and borrowing, the tasks, the last option, overtime. And from there, you can really see how the performance improves. The final step happens the following Tuesday, where you compare the plan to what actually happened and take lessons forward to next week's plan. Driving these variances towards zero is a fundamental aspect of control. Here are actual results of some of AOM's US and Canadian clients. And we have very similar results in service centers throughout the world. Each of these lines represents the productivity improvement achieved by these departments or lines of business. Each line represents groups of about between 125 to 300 FTEs. In total, they represent over 3,000 FTE. And remember, the method is agnostic to the type of work being performed. So we have deposit operations, lending services, credit application services, and many other groups. So these are actual results and productivity improvements just by frontline managers and supervisors improving their match sources to load by applying the AOM method and skills. At an annualized FTE cost of about 50K, these results equate to annual savings of over $4.5 million. Our quality objective is to get our clients to a 30% productivity improvement by the 15-month point and ensure that these benefits are sustained. If you're wondering how your current organization compares to best practices, we can provide you with our free self-assessment tool. It provides a framework where you can compare aspects of your current management control cycle to best practices. If you score each area on a scale from 1 to 5, it will also provide you with an indicator of where your organization might be located on the capability maturity model.
So Terry, is there anything else that would help organizations determine how well they're doing or whether it would be worth looking closer at an alternative approach?
There is. Service Operations Management Capability Maturity Model that I just mentioned was developed in conjunction with the Warwick Business School and is becoming a standard for organizations to gauge how well they're doing.
And what's the difference between the self-assessment diagnostic and the capability maturity model?
Well, the capability maturity model differentiates between 5 levels of organizational management maturity, from a level 1 all the way up to a level 5. And in reality, the two tools should be used together to really obtain the best assessment. Most organizations self-identify at a level 2 or 3.
Thanks, Terry, for all of the detail that you and Michelle provided on the difference between classic operations approach and the AOM approach. Again, I'd like to invite everybody on the line to submit their questions via the GoToMeeting dashboard on the right side of your screen, where it says enter a question for staff. If you do not see this area, please extend the orange arrow to open the dashboard now. I'll take a second to let some of these questions populate. Let's see what we've got here. First question coming up is, looks like this one is for you, Terry. Are you guys consultants?
No, we're definitely not consultants. We are active operations management implementation experts. The work is actually performed by our transformation coaches.
Okay, another question popping up. Looks like this one is aimed more for Michelle. Michelle, some people in operations feel their volume can't be predicted. Did you experience that within TD, and how did you handle that?
Yes, we had a couple managers who were very resistant to trying to predict their incoming volumes due to the volatility of the volumes that came into their area. But what found move forward with program is the trending and the ability to predict what they think might happen has put them in a better position to handle any unexpected volumes that come their way.
Great, thanks, Michelle. Terry, another one looks like focused for you. Pretty straightforward. What does it cost?
Well, we guarantee a minimum gain on investment of over 200% within 12 months. So it more than pays for itself within months.
Another one for you, Terry. Does AOM fit in contact centers as well?
Yes, it does. AOM in contact centers enables blended capacity planning in conjunction with cascade call routing. AOM is also compatible with existing workforce management technologies and tools.
Paul, like I have another one here for you. Cross models. Some people aren't interested in being trained in other areas. So what did TD do with that?
That is true. Some folks are very resistant to change. They're good at what they do, and that's all they want to do. With those particular individuals, we don't force any kind of cross-training across department lines for them. We look for individuals who are interested in personal growth and development, and we take those individuals and utilize them in those other areas.
Great, thank you. Terry, another one looks like it's aimed at you. Do participants receive certification?
Yes. Participants receive full accreditation in active operations management. This is becoming a global standard in professional service operations management. For example, in Australia, of managers and supervisors in the financial services sector accredited in active operations management.
Another one aimed at you, Terry. How fast are benefits generated?
Well, the first 10% of productivity improvement is often generated within the first 12 weeks, with results continuing to build to 30% within 15 months.
Now here's an interesting one, Terry. Actually, there are a couple more here that I find pretty interesting. Someone wants to know what are the typical next steps, and also if you can follow that up with why can't I do this myself?
Okay. Next steps would be having one of our transformation coaches perform a remote or an on-site diagnostic. As far as can I do it myself, well, organizations have attempted to invent their own version of active operations management, but ultimately failed. There are many still AOM that need to achieve this culture transformation and sustain these high levels of performance improvement.
Great. Have another question that just popped up. How long does the process take?
The core coaching takes 11 weeks, and then there's sustained coaching that continues out to the 15-month point to ensure that the productivity improvement trend is sustained.
Great. That's all the questions I see right now. If anyone else would like to enter a question before we close things out, I would urge you to do so now. Wait a second to see if we get any more questions here. And it doesn't look like anything is popping up. So with that, I'd like to thank again Michelle Van Twistern of TD Bank and Terry Woods of Active Operations Management for joining us today. We hope you've gained some additional knowledge and insight from attending today's presentation. If you need a copy of this presentation to review with your colleagues, well, we'll be posting that to our website very shortly. You can either contact us via the addresses that were on the previous slide, or you can go to www.activeops.us.com and look for the webinar link when it's posted. Thank you again. We hope you'll join us again for our future webinars in our continuing series on better operational management. Thank you very much and have a great day.